Emily Ryan is back and Iowa State gets the win over BYU. What more could you ask for on a wonderful Wednesday evening? We'll break it all down today on Locked On Cyclones.
You are Locked On Cyclones, your daily podcast on the Iowa State Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to Locked On Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Shout out to you for making this your first watch or listen of the day every single day. I appreciate it more than you know. I'd appreciate it as well if we could prove once and for all that it is, in fact, a Cyclone state. You can help me out in doing that by hitting subscribe. It means more than you know. What are we talking about today? Iowa State defeats BYU. We're going to break that down into every little detail. Almost turned Australian there. Then we'll talk a little bit about Autz's Thoughts, a reoccurring segment that I personally am a big fan of. I hope you are as well, because the guy never misses. And then finally, to round out the third segment, we are going to talk about the Big 12 men's basketball landscape as a whole, about a third of the way through the conference slate. And what does that look like? It's going to be an interesting hang on for the ride. But first things first, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Now, let's start at square one. The first thing we got to talk about today is Iowa State and the women defeating BYU and their women basketball team. They win 82-59 to move to 14-7 on the year, 5-3 in the conference. And side note, just, I don't know, tickles my brain the right way. 14-7. 14 is twice as many wins as 7 losses, right? 7 times 2 is 14. I don't know. Maybe I'm a football guy and the 7 and the 14 is all kind of working in conjunction there. Either way, nonetheless, it's not really important. That being said, let's talk box score numbers here. Your leading scorer on the evening was, in fact, Addy Crooks with 24. Addy Brown follows her up closely behind with 22. Then you got Sydney Harris in the starting lineup with 11 points there, and Emily Ryan with 7. Now, we've got a few other odds and ends we have to touch on. Kelsey Jones off the bench with 6. Let's go to Lily Hansford with 4. Allie Tankey with 3. Ariana Jackson starting with 3, and Alyssa Williams with 2. Now, before we get too far into the game itself, I'd just like to quickly note, we've been talking quite a bit up until this point about what can this Iowa State team do well? What do we need to do to win? Well, we need to spread the scoring out, right? Think of it like a piece of toast. Do you want all your Nutella on just one half? No, you want to spread that Nutella all across the entire piece of toast, making every bite just as good as the last. Now, are we talking about a piece of toast and Nutella here? No, of course not. We're talking about a Division I women's basketball team. I understand that those two things are entirely different, but the saying does kind of hold up here. We want the players to kind of spread all of these statistics out and not have one kind of shining light pillar player that can easily, if you shut down this player, we're kind of not in a great spot here. Well, I think the Iowa State did that tonight. You look, we've only got 2 players that did not score any points. And I mean, I don't know. I just think that's pretty awesome. I don't have the minutes up here, but I believe it's Alyssa Williams that had 2 points and she only played 2 minutes. So it was like she went out and got it like right away. And so I don't know. I just feel like that's a big win. No points for Reagan Wilson or Lily Talele, which is, sometimes it's actually expected not everyone scores. I feel like, that's a lot of points to go around, especially when Addy Crooks and Addy Brown combine for 46 of the 82. So big night from those two. But then you look at Emily Ryan and Sydney Harris as well. We'll break that down more in a second. But I'd like to talk about the game, kind of the flow. First, Iowa State found themselves down 15-4. That's 11, and then down also 17-7 to start this game. That's 10. Now, Bill Fennelly said after the game, I didn't feel like we were playing poorly. We just weren't hitting our shots necessarily. And so I did pull up the field goal percentage by quarter. They shot 1 of 4 in the first from beyond the arc and 4 of 14 from the floor. That's 28.57%. From the floor. I don't know if I said that. Then the rest of the game, they shot 50% from 3 in every quarter, and their worst quarter was the 4th from the floor, shooting 5 of 12 or 41, almost 42%. Not quite twice as high as their first quarter, but their second and third quarter were almost right around twice the percentage of makes, if that makes sense, right? So you go from 28% to 47 and 57. 57 is a true really, really close to twice as good. And so obviously, I would have to agree with him. I don't know how much things actually changed, but they certainly did start hitting their shots, which is going to help. You could have the best game plan in the entire world. If you put a piece of plastic over the rim and the ball can't pass through to get you points, you're never going to win. You can't win with 0 points, right? So you have to score, and to score, you have to hit your shots. So at a very basic level, you should make shots. That'll help you win basketball games. And it obviously worked out for them. Going down, 11, 10, whichever point in the game you want to pick. They end up losing the first quarter by 6, 18-12. But they quickly turn that around, winning the second quarter by 11. All of a sudden, things are a little bit different now, and they end up winning by 23. So was Iowa State the better team in this game? I would venture to say yes. BYU, I mean, give them credit. They certainly tried to stay in it early. Other than the third quarter, they shot pretty well from three. Almost 40% all night, 37.5, 40, and 45% in the first, second, and fourth quarters, respectively. Did have a down kind of second half, though, with a 20 and a 30% shooting quarter. So that being said, what do I make of this game? I think this is a great rebounding game for the Cyclones. I thought they played solid. They were able to get Emily Ryan back in, only played 24 minutes, but obviously coming off of that illness, I didn't expect her to play an entire full game, especially in a game in which he ended up winning by 23. Shot 31 free throws, 77%, 20 assists on 25 field goals. Pretty good. I like where this Iowa State team is at. And obviously tomorrow we will break down kind of their next few games because they're not playing tomorrow, right? So we'll talk about what's coming up for them, that'd be Friday. We'll talk about it. They'll have UCF and then 2 back-to-back ranked games against Kansas State and TCU. Now that one of those will be on the road, they'll head to Kansas State and then they'll have TCU at home, which will help, certainly will help. But those are going to be 2 tough ones. So I do like that Iowa State was able to grab momentum in this win over BYU, and I thought they did it in a way, they won this game in a way that I thought was good for the team, right? This is a good win. It wasn't a messy win. They've certainly had their fair share of what I would consider to be messy wins, maybe like Texas Tech, for example. But nope, they handle business. I really like where this team is at. I really do. Especially the interesting, the mix up here. Now you've got Kelsey Jones coming back off the bench. Remember when Kelsey Jones got put into the starting lineup, we started to see a surge from this team. That's when they hit that 3-game stride. And now this is what we're doing, and it seems to be working. Bill Fennelly knows what he's doing, obviously. He's been a coach for a long time. And I do think that this Iowa State team can make some noise. We just got to go on a tear here. We just got to go on a tear, and this win over BYU was a great place to start, holding the opponent to only 59 points. It's good. It's going to win you a lot of games, especially when you score 82. If you score 82 and hold the opponent to 59, guess what? You're going to win the game. That's a number thing, right? You can't debate that with me. Okay. I've said some things that you guys like to debate me. That's fine. That's why I have the microphone, but you can't debate me on that. That's a pure math problem. But you know what isn't a math problem? What comes out of Otz's mouth? That guy just spews intelligence in the most abstract ways. I love it. I love it. Some of the things he says very direct. Some of the things he says just you kind of have to grasp, right? You kind of have to wrap your mind around. I can't wait to dive into it. We'll do it right after this. Do not go anywhere. Coming up right after this, Otz's thoughts. Therapy is a game changer. It can help manage stress, improve sleep, and communicate more effectively. But finding the right therapist and fitting sessions into a busy schedule can be a challenge. That's where Talkspace comes in. Talkspace, the leading virtual therapy provider, makes getting the help you need easy, accessible, and affordable. With Talkspace, signing up is simple. You can match with a licensed therapist who fits your needs, usually within 48 hours, and it's convenient. You can have sessions from the comfort of your home and even message your therapist between appointments. Plus, Talkspace is covered by many insurance plans, and for most insured members, there's a $0 copay. It's never been easier to prioritize mental health. As a listener of this podcast, you'll get $80 off your first month with Talkspace when you go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnCollege and enter promo code SPACE80. To match with a licensed therapist today, go to Talkspace.com/lockedoncollege and enter promo code SPACE80 to get $80 off your first month and show your support for the show. That's Talkspace.com/lockedoncollege, promo code SPACE80. Now we jump into one of my favorite segments. It's quickly growing on me at a rate that I did not foresee. Otz's thoughts, ladies and gentlemen, here at Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We talked about TJ Otzelberger. I've heard him called TJ Goetzelberger in my comments. Shout out, you know who you are. This perfect name. I mean, all of everything I'm going to pull from here is from his post UCF presser. So if you know it like the back of your hand, you have it memorized, you can perform it at your school's talent show. Unfortunately, what the quotes I give you will not be new, but I will try to break them down a little bit, provide some value for you. Now, let's start with a just pure one, and it's something that I know a lot of people have been interested in. He was asked about Milan, and he did get surgery before the UCF game. And so Otz basically said, hey, I went checked on him. Seems to be in good spirits. That 4 to 6 kind of time. He didn't say that number, but did say, hey, that timeline right after the injury seems like it's probably still what we're looking at here. Not much you can make of that other than that's good news, right? That is good news. If you were to say Milan's in bad spirits, I would be very concerned because I'd have never heard a coach say that. And then to openly say that, it's like, oh man, we might be in maybe the surgery didn't go well. You don't hear that very often. So that was certainly good news. Now, something else, kind of obviously the Joshua Jefferson game, as we all know it, occurred against UCF. 30 points for the man, the myth, the legend, really, at this point. The guy's a dog. And he was asked about Joshua Jefferson quite a bit in this presser. And something that I don't know if everybody knew, TJ recruited Joshua Jefferson at his time at his quote-unquote previous stop, UNLV. So he was pretty familiar with this guy, right? He'd been on Zoom calls with him. He knew his character. And so then when he goes into the transfer portal and TJ's now at Iowa State, he's like, I know the guy. I know what he, kind of who he is, what he's capable of. And I knew that there was more to his game than what he had put out on the college floor. First off, what a call. I mean, I'm unable to call my shot if I shoot it from 3. I'm genuinely unable to tell if it's going in or not, right? Let alone call the shot on a player and be that accurate. Shout out to TJ for knowing what Joshua Jefferson had in him. And obviously, doing it through, the UNLV so long, built that trust up. And that's something he talked about has carried over, right? Knee injury in the summer, not able to play a whole lot. Kind of spent a lot of time rehabbing, and he's talked about now, his just his maturity in multiple facets, and I'll kind of dive into that more in a second as well. But his maturity with the team and the trust he's put into the process, into the rehab in his body and what needs to be done is second to none, really. Not his words, but certainly mine. He said that this guy. He plays a lot of minutes. Was asked about how they do that, and I'll get that's a something down the road. I haven't marked, but he was like, we're better with him on the floor. Like that's just a fact. And on that maturity piece, he kind of mentioned like we didn't know if he'd want to stay closer to home. We didn't know where he'd be at with that whole thing, but he decided he wants to grow as a player. He decided he could do that here, and he's been very mature, and it's just unreal. Like shout out. His praise of Joshua Jefferson, the way he praises his players is like phenomenal. I don't know if someone asked me, if I was coaching AAU, they're like, well, how little Timmy do? I'd probably be like, yeah, he's a dog. What do you mean? No, TJ says it in the most eloquent way. Absolutely phenomenal. Another one that I did love here, and it's actually kind of funny that this happens to be in the show because I mentioned in the first segment how much I loved the women's team now being 14-7. I don't know if it's a numbers thing, whatever it is. TJ said their order of operations. Pause right there. Love it. Going back to 4th grade math. Absolutely love it. But talking about kind of transition, philosophy, how does that whole thing work out? He said the order of operations of this team is to pressure the ball, guard the ball, and then finish the plays on the glass. Perfect. Now, this was kind of right off the heels of, a game in which there was well over 170 points scored. I think it was like 108 to 82 is what I want to say it was. I don't have it up in front of me, but either way, a very high scoring game. And he said to the guys, like, I don't want this to be shot for shot type of deal. We need to go out, play defense. And we talked about it yesterday. Yes, I do also fear that beating a team by more than 100 would probably put them in Division Two. I saw that in the comments. That was hilarious. But either way, what I'm saying here is pressure the ball, guard the ball, finish the plays on the glass. And that's going to open up opportunities to make plays in transition when those things happen, is what he says. I love the philosophy there. I absolutely do. This team thrives off of the transition. It's where they get a lot of really good looks. Am I slightly concerned about their ability in the half court? Maybe. But their ability to create transition, especially against a team like UCF that goes heavy into the boards, is second to none. And we saw it clearly, 108 points. I don't have the exact number in front of me, but they had well over 20 points in transition. And so to see his philosophy, it's not like a luck, right? That's what I'm trying to pull from this whole thing. Them scoring points in transition is not luck. It's how they're going about the game, right? They're trying to pressure the ball, which we have talked about, certainly. Then they got to guard the ball, prevent them from scoring. And then when they don't score, get the ball off the glass and move it up the floor. And then what do you do from there? Well, at some point, you got to just let the guys play basketball, for sure. But on the other hand, like, they've got concepts, right? They know who's good where. What are their strengths? And so that's where this team excels. I think they're just coached so deeply. And every coach is, every team's coached deeply. But this one, TJ, he's a special one. That is for sure. Now, speaking of special ones, I laughed so hard at this. Asked about the timeout after UCF went about 4 straight threes coming out of the halftime break there. He's kind of just basically asked what happened. And TJ was like, yeah, you know what? That timeout wasn't exactly a super warm and fuzzy timeout. It's like, good. That probably didn't need to be. But essentially what he said was, this team, we had to lock back in, to put it in just as simple of words as possible. It's great. I love a coach that can feel the vibe of the game, feel when it's not necessarily getting away from you, but certainly at a position where it's not where you want it to be. But you can also feel that your players aren't playing with the same intensity, right? If the opposing team makes 4 threes in a row, there's essentially, there's an infinite number of things that could happen, but certainly 2 major things that could happen. Very contested threes. The clock is expiring. They're from 45 feet, or they're 4 wide open threes. Maybe in the corner, one from the key. They're like right on the line. There's like 10, 15 seconds left in the clock, whatever. 2 very different situations. How do you handle those situations? Well, as I always, like to quote, situations are situational. So I couldn't tell you for sure, but he was able to pull, from the vibe of the guys on the floor. We're not where we need to be mentally. We are not giving enough respect to this, boundary defense that we need to be. This is not what we've committed to the game. This is not what we've done in practice. This is what we need to do. We're not doing it. Let's take a second. Everyone, remember where we're at. What are we doing right now? Playing basketball. Let's guard the 3. Let's go play basketball. This isn't a shoot around. Playing a game. Lock them back in. Things, it's just how they went. We wrote the history books on that one. You know what they say? Winners write the history books. We wrote the history books on that one. And then finally, interesting point here. Definitely found this one to be interesting. Last one from TJ here. Talks about the more aggressive team and kind of talks about how the more aggressive team, he says, quote, don't get whistled for as many fouls. And then this is what I was talking about earlier when he was asked about how many minutes Joshua Jefferson was playing, kind of playing like 35, 36, 37, 38 minutes, a lot of minutes. And he also said, you can play for longer stretches. Now, the first part I do definitely agree with. We've seen it at times, but it's very rare you get called for every foul, right? That's just not that common. So if you're extremely aggressive, you're not going to get called every single time. And also, not every time is it going to be a foul. So I like that take. I do. More aggressive teams don't get whistled as many times. I think that's a fair assessment. Now, here's where I was confused. More aggressive teams can generally play in longer stretches. I was like, well, I don't agree with that. Could I run like a jog longer than I could sprint? Yes, I couldn't sprint as long as I could jog. However, I do see where he's coming from because we're not talking about track and field here. We're talking about basketball. He's talking about the pride that comes with playing at a high intensity. You will run through your glycolytic supply of energy significantly faster if you're sprinting than if you're jogging. You'd be using your oxidative system. Everyone knows that. But the pride, the I don't know what other word to use than pride, but just the self, the making it bigger than yourself, making it about the team, all of those kinds of things that go into it. Playing aggressively brings that out, and it forces you to play for something bigger than just like running sprints. Which, nothing against track. I'm not trying to take a dig at track here. I'm just saying that being this, it is what it is, and I like that he's that very mental. Let's be aggressive, coach, and it's deeper than just go out and play hard because it's about the team, the team, the team, the team, the team. That being said, there are multiple teams in the Big 12 conference. Let's break all of it down and kind of where is everyone at this point in the season, because we're about a third of the way through the conference. We'll break it down coming up right after this. Attending NFL playoff games is an experience like no other. The energy, the excitement, and the connection with other fans is unmatched. I remember the thrill of seeing my favorite team clinch a playoff win live. It's a memory I'll never forget. This year, Game Time makes it even easier to create those unforgettable moments with their new feature, Game Time Picks. It filters out all the fluff and shows you only the best deals on great seats so you can focus on what matters, being there. I used Game Time Picks to grab tickets for an upcoming playoff game, and it couldn't have been easier. I found a super deal that gave me incredible value for amazing seats, and I could even preview the view from my spot before buying. The all-in pricing is a game changer. No surprise fees at checkout. You guys know those two things mandatory for me. Plus, knowing my tickets are backed by the Game Time guarantee gave me complete peace of mind. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Iowa State is in the Big 12. Shocker, I know. You're here with Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The Big 12, I guess, kind of runs into this show. That being said, we got to talk about basketball at a bigger scale here. We have kind of yet to break down what's going on in the conference. I assume you probably are aware, but we got to talk about it. We certainly have to talk about it because Iowa State kind of not at the top, but certainly up there. Certainly up there. Now, I'm not going to try to get too crazy into the numbers here, but obviously when we're looking at a conference, I can't talk about every player in a conference, especially after all the conference realignment we've been through, guys. I mean, let's be realistic here. I'm just going to leave it. Anyways, so rankings-wise, standings-wise, currently Iowa State is second in the Big 12. I'm sure you're aware. Currently at 6-1 in the conference, 16-2 overall. Now you're probably thinking, well, who could possibly be ahead of the Cyclones at this point? Well, Iowa State ranked number 3 in the AP poll, number 7 in the AP poll. Houston is 7-0 in the conference, 15-3 overall. Both teams at the top, 11-0 at home. Houston with the 11-game win streak right now. Okay. Interesting to note. Obviously, Houston, the 7, ranked team right now. Iowa State, the 3. The 15-3, 16-2 on the year, almost identical. We'll break down Houston more in a second, but if you don't want to get to the end, let's just say that their win over Utah has scared me a little bit. We're probably going to have to talk to Locked On Houston because this team is very good. That being said, let's move down the list a little bit here. Arizona, 6-1, currently third in the standings, 12-6 overall, currently ranked 12th. Unranked. I don't know why I jumped to Kansas, but I'll just jump to them. Kansas is 4th. They are 14-4, 5-2 in the conference. They are ranked 12th. They even have the little shaded lines here, and I'm jumping all over the place. My lines, I guess they're not straight. I don't know. Kansas at 4th there, and then Texas Tech and West Virginia at 5 and 6. West Virginia currently ranked 23rd. Probably won't be ranked much longer. Texas Tech, I wouldn't be surprised if they potentially move up, but we'll talk about what's coming up on Saturday here in a minute. Then you got Baylor, Utah, TCU, BYU, UCF, Cincinnati, Arizona State, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, and Colorado in That's in order. I didn't just say them in a random order. That's the order of the teams in the Big 12. Colorado at 0-7, Kansas State 1-6. Then you got a group of 2 winners, 3 winners. The 4 winners are West Virginia and Baylor. Pretty solid conference, but this is one of those that it's interesting, right? We talk all the time about how good the Big 12 is at basketball. And when you look at this, you got a team that hasn't won a single conference game yet, a Kansas State team, that's only won 1, 3 teams that have only won 2. The argument then would be, how is this the best conference in basketball? It's a fair assessment. It certainly is, but I don't know what to tell you. At some point, you've got Houston, Iowa State, and Arizona and Kansas at the top of this conference. I don't think we're talking so much about Colorado. I mean, the bottom is just kind of eating itself up right now. Colorado has played Iowa State, us, obviously, Arizona State, UCF, WVU, Cincinnati, Oklahoma State, and BYU, right? BYU in there, Oklahoma State, 3 from the bottom. UCF, we just beat by we scored 108 on them. So that's really all that matters. So, I don't know, man. I don't know how to answer this is the best team in the conference. Besides, I still do believe that it is, or in best conference in the league, or whatever the NCAA is named now, is what I'm trying to say. The Big 12 is the hardest place to play basketball, in my opinion. You want to look at the standings? Fine. The other side of that, though, is this just what the Big 12 has been forever. It's always going to eat itself alive, right? Look at a West Virginia against an Iowa State. I don't know what else to tell you besides they just had it out for Iowa State. They did. Then they lose to Arizona State 65-57. And where did I put Arizona State? Oh, that's right. They have 2 conference wins. One of them being West Virginia. They were 1-5. I don't know what to tell you. So, some of these, that's just how the Big 12 works. It's hard to play every single game, especially on the road. That's a bit of a rundown kind of on where is the conference at as a whole. Rankings wise, I mentioned AP, what is that really worth? But you've got 4 in the top 25 right now as it stands. And Texas Tech knocking on that door. Well, what's coming up this weekend? That's a good question. Iowa State, Arizona State, and we'll talk more about Iowa State here in a second. I'm going to fly through these first. Iowa State, Arizona State. Then you got Colorado at Arizona, TCU at UCF, Baylor at Utah, West Virginia at Kansas State, Houston at Kansas. That's going to be a good one. Cincinnati at BYU. What are we looking for? Obviously, we're going to be watching the Iowa State game. The other ones I want to see are going to be that Houston-Kansas game, and how does Arizona-Colorado go? I'm pretty sure at this point we know. Now, that being said, Iowa State in a very interesting spot here. 5-game stretch, going to be dicey. Arizona State, Arizona, both on the road is nice. 2 days apart there. Then you move to February 1st. You got Kansas State at home, Kansas on the road, and TCU at home. I don't know. I would almost clump the TCU into that second kind of chunk. I would rather do this 4-game than the 5-game. But either way, the Arizona State, Arizona, I think we can capture both of those handedly. Kansas State, especially at home, I have no doubt we take that one. KU on the road could be tough. Certainly could be tough, especially with Hunter Dickinson not wanting to let go of the ball. I mean, that's just going to be a hard thing to deal with. I like where Iowa State's at right now, though. The game that I do have circled and it has become blockbuster, February 22nd. Circle it, mark your calendars. Iowa State goes to Houston. We have a chance to do something amazing. And their home win streak, if it doesn't happen before that, it's going to be electric. That game is going to be an absolute perfect test of what can Iowa State accomplish in the postseason. I don't know. I don't know exactly, what the case will be. Is Milan back? We don't know. We don't know those things yet. But it's going to be fun. I mean, this team is so much fun to watch right now. They're only going to get better in the next few games. I don't know how many it is between now and then. I'm not going to count. And Houston's only going to get better. It's going to be a battle. It's going to be a clash of the Titans. So that being said, this Big 12 is still a very good conference. Don't be ridiculous. This is still a very good place to play basketball. I know that the bottom, we're getting a little bit of flack here, but that's fine. The top of the top is still the top. Kansas at 5-2. I mean, they're still very good. Texas Tech, very good. West Virginia, really good defense. somehow just sniped Iowa State, and I don't love it. That being said, come back tomorrow for a full breakdown on all the games going on this weekend. It's going to be a fast one. That one's going to be moving. We got a lot to go through. Until next time, Cyclone fans, sayonara.